Welcome, beautiful creatures, to the Lightness of Being podcast, where we celebrate the dance of life and explore ways to find joy, laughter, and lightness, even when faced with challenges. Join me, your host, Monika Stefanik, as we step into the light and discover a realm of potential and possibilities for greater ease in our lives. Let's laugh, learn, and grow together. Dearest, lovely listeners, this first podcast deserves an introduction. In the spirit of full authenticity and vulnerability of the creative process and being a brand new creator myself in this realm, this first episode is beautiful, and I'm very excited for you to listen to it. And as it is the first one, there's a bit of ups and downs with parts of the audio. So, to give you a heads up that there are pieces where, it's not fully exactly the way that we would love extensively clear audio to be, especially for something like a podcast. And I grappled with this a little bit and thought about re-recording it. However, I really love the first recording. And as a piece of, what this podcast is meant to be is authentic and vulnerable. So, of course, the first episode we would encounter this slight challenge, and I'm just glad that you all get to be along here for the ride. So, without further ado, here is the first episode of the Lightness of Being podcast. Hello, beautiful beings, and welcome back to the podcast. As I was getting ready to record this, I was just like, it's just so funny how the plans that we have sometimes just go completely out the window. And being someone who totally used to be a huge planner and was like, oh my gosh, everything has to go to plan and schedule and all of this. There's been so much deep surrender and releasing that gripping over the last few years, really. So that being said, had a plan. The energy that was coming through, totally different and very related to something that's very up in my world right now. So that's what we're going to talk about. Let's just take a moment and just drop into the space. I'm going to take a big deep breath if you'd like. Henry's feeling a little shy and doesn't want to be in the camera, I don't think. So that's okay, but he's here. And we've got other Ginger, all the dog energy around. Beautiful. So, yeah, oh my gosh. We're going to get into this wholeness and holiness, which is like a message that came through when I was receiving a really, really incredible session just the other day from a friend. Wholeness, holiness was in the middle of this session as I'm receiving and breathing and crying and releasing. This was a transmission that came through from Brianne Grogan, my friend that was working on me. And I've been sitting with that a lot, actually. And that feels most alive for me right now, and there's so much underneath that, which feels most resonant to speak about. So we're just gonna dive right in to the deep end. Like, we're just gonna go there. My intention with this platform was to just go there and be really real and authentic and vulnerable with all of the things. So let's just start off proper by like diving right in. I also just want to acknowledge the gratitude for our beautiful Christmas tree that we got from the forest here in Oregon. We get one every single year. That's why I'm sitting down here. I moved my space just so that I was like, the tree wanted to be a part of this today. So tree is here. It's obviously Christmas time. Christmas is in just over a week, and so is my birthday, which is the 24th of December. So yes, there's lots of really amazing celebration, and honestly touching on that topic of wholeness and worthiness around this time of year for me. So yeah, we're just gonna go right in. The energy that's most alive is in this space of like self-love and worth and celebration. So we're going to touch on that space of celebrating ourselves as well as celebrating others. And oh my God, that's been such a big thing for me. And then getting into topics of like being worthy and deserving and just the transformation that I've gone through and am continuing to go through as it relates to moving from this space of like self-doubt and feeling really unworthy and not deserving, or like there's nothing for me to really celebrate. Like I'm like the mountain goat, right? You just got to keep climbing and keep going and keep going. There's no pause. There's no stop. You just keep going because like your worth is determined by your output. And whoa, is that story? Such a story. And so not in alignment with who we really are as beings on this planet. And just like such a small little, like it keeps us so constricted. Like we are infinite beings. We are infinite beings. To even have the concept that we are unworthy or undeserving of love, attention, celebration, like whatever it is like when you actually get to this point where I'm at right now, it's like it's kind of laughable. But like when you're in that space of feeling those feelings, and do not get me wrong, like I've been deep in it the past few days, like deep in it. And it is so hard to remember that. And like, even as I'm saying like, oh, it's kind of laughable, like, but in that moment, like, it's not laughable at all. I'm like, no, I'm like really feeling these feelings. Like, I do not feel worthy of this. I feel like an imposter. Like all of these different things are coming up for me. And it's like, okay, yes. And I stayed really present with that. And I actually shared with some friends. And the reason that this was something that came up in my session was because that's what I spoke to my friend about. Like we dropped in before we even started the work. And I was like, this is just what's really alive for me right now. These topics of not feeling deserving or worthy in so many different areas of my life. And actually, like, as I've been sitting with it, like really understanding like, whoa, that it's so much deeper inside of me than I ever could have imagined, right? Like all of this stuff, like our work of healing and unraveling, like it is a constant, it's like peeling back an onion, right? And yet sometimes we get to these spaces and we're like, oh, okay, like I've done so much, like that's gotta be it, right? And then like a whole new awareness comes in, and like that's kind of what happened this week, because I was like, wow, like there is some stuff here that I just like did not realize. And like when the limiting mindset and same areas of life keep coming back in and coming back in and coming back in, it's like, okay, obviously there is something here for me to look at. So we take a pause. And we look at what that is for us. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the timing of this session with Brie, because the potency and the potency of that in my world, those stories and that those feelings were it was just overtaking me and causing a lot of constriction. And so, and actually, that day that I received that session, I play a lot with oracle cards and all these different divination tools, right? And one of my favorite decks is Rebecca Campbell's deck, the Starseed Oracle. And that day, I had actually, it might have been the night before. Anyway, I pulled this card, Loosen Your Grip, coping mechanisms, density, addiction, let God in. And it actually felt really appropriate for the transmission of this podcast as well. So I'm going to read a little bit from the book about this card. And, if it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, you can just leave it. It's okay. All of this stuff, everything that I share on here, right, is just, it's sharing. It's take what resonates and just leave the rest. Just as with anything in this world, like what hits for you is the most important piece, and anything else you can just be like, that girl's crazy, like I don't know what she's talking about right now, like that's not me. And that's a lot of what we do, right? Especially when we like hit on some of these pieces of like our wounding and our hurt and our pain, right? Like unworthiness, self-love, like all this stuff. It's like, no, I love myself. Like, no, I'm totally worthy. And like all this. And it's really easy to be kind of dismissive about it. And so within this space, I just want to encourage you all, this is safe. This is a safe space when you're home, when you're alone, when you're with yourself, when you're at your altar, when you're in church, like whatever it is for you, like those are safe spaces for you to like sit with what really comes up with you and like be really radically honest with yourself, radically honest with people in your life that deserve to know these things about you and that can be with you and hold you and also celebrate you for even just being open and vulnerable like that, right? Because like it's so difficult, but that's also how we bring in connection with others, with ourselves, is through being radically vulnerable and being like, hey, this is really alive for me right now. And this is really, really tough. And also like, I'm really going through something and I kind of need a little bit of support, or I need a sounding board or whatever that looks like. But just to like open that up for you and to share it. Like we are so worthy of being able to even share those deep, dark secrets that hide inside where you're like, I don't want anyone to see that. Like no one needs to see that. It's like, it's going to come out at some point. Especially if we're burying it and we're not dealing with it. Like it's going to come out. So it's so funny when we try to like, when we push that stuff away, and like, of course I do it too, right? And then like, we're in relationship or we're with our family or whatever, and we get triggered and it comes out and it's like, whoa. And that first piece of like awareness, but it's also really hard to like be aware of those things. Now I'm going off on a totally different tangent, but apparently this is also what needs to come through is just like owning our shit. And like a lot of times people point it out and is really uncomfortable. You're just like, and then we get triggered and we get upset and we react and all this stuff. And it's like, yo, okay, let's take a pause and try to acknowledge what that was and actually take radical self-responsibility, because it's through like owning those parts and pieces of us, the shadow, like through owning that shadow and really looking at it and holding it, like holding your inner child and being like, yo, hey, honey, I got you. Like, I understand. You're upset. You're in pain. You're hurt. And those other people, like whatever else may not have you, but like, I got you. And we can look at this and we can send this piece of ourselves so much forgiveness and compassion and love. And that is truly where that piece of self-love starts, is by not just acknowledging like how amazing and incredible we are, but also like owning our humanness and owning our shadow, and not reaching constantly externally outside of ourselves for the validation, for the love, for whatever it is, but to come here and to hold yourself and to be like, hey, I'm here. I got you. Because the most important relationship that we will ever have is with ourselves. And so that's the practice, is to constantly come back here. And it is a journey, and it is a fight sometimes. And of course we need help. Of course we need to reach out to the people in our life that actually support us, the practices in our life that actually support us. And the most important piece is to come here. Is to come right back here. So with that, while I read this message from the Oracle deck, I invite you to close your eyes, put your hands on your heart, in your belly, or somewhere on your body, and just receive this. We are cyclic beings, and Mother Earth teaches us how to be human every day, with the coming and going of the tides and the seasons. If you're clinging to anything, you're resisting the natural flow of who you are. The things we cling to are so often those we most need to let go of. The food, the substances, the relationship, the job, the people-pleasing. The things we cling to often cover up our most vulnerable space, the part we're most afraid to leave empty. The part we guard and don't let grace into. But keeping that space covered with something doesn't serve us, or clinging to it for fear of it not staying of its own accord. We prevent ourselves from receiving the things that will. A Course in Miracles tells us, whatever we leave empty, grace will fill. And the Buddha said, you can only loosen what you cling to. Indeed, both are true. This card appears, you're being called to find the courage to loosen your grip and give up control, to release your coping mechanism and leave space for grace and God to enter, to surrender all that feels dense to the divine. Loosening your grip doesn't mean that what you're clinging to will go away. It may, or it might stay. But you can be sure that what is for you will find you, and you'll breathe easier knowing that you've shifted from relying on your own strength to surrendering to the grace of life. And there's a little prompt in here. What are you clinging to for fear of nothing coming to take its place? That is a really good journal prompt. And so there's a little invitation there to just deepen with that question. So there's one thing I want to speak to really quick. So anytime you ever hear me maybe bringing the word God on this podcast, I understand that can be very stirring. I've been there. Trust me. Grew up with religion. It's a thing. I don't particularly consider myself religious at all. I consider myself deeply spiritual, deeply devotional, and I don't identify with any one which way at all. And I am deeply devoted to this life and to spirit and to everything that exists around us. So God, when that word comes up, is whatever it means to you. Your animals, the plants, the animal kingdom, the big guy in the sky, like whatever that is for you. I just want to speak to that like right off the bat, because I know that it's going to come through a few different times, and I just want to like own that and acknowledge that and bring that into the space. Also, yeah, for me, just a little piece. So like loosening your grip, like letting go of control. Again, huge process for me, like Phoenix transformation over the years. And because again, like I have had so many control issues in so many different ways that actually brought me like so much, it brought me a lot of pain, right? Because like when we're not in surrender to the flow of life, like there is a time and a space, right, for it to like plan things out a little bit. But it's really important that we leave spaciousness for the ebbs and flows and the change and the chaos to enter. And like when we don't leave space for that, it's like everything gets really crunchy and it's like stuff didn't go my way, and then we get all like and that's just, speaking from someone who lived that way, it's no way to live. I have had the privilege and pleasure of having really an incredible life up until this point. And because of the neural pathways and the negative self-talk and a lot of these mechanisms, like the control and so many different things. Like, even though I've done a lot and have had a lot of really amazing life experiences, a lot of it was fraught with internal pain. Like, I'm in these experiences and I should be, like happy and amazing, yet I'm like fraught with anxiety and worry, and I'm in some of the most amazing places on this planet and I'm still depressed, and it's like, what's happening? So all that to say, we're doing great. And it's a journey. It's a journey to get there. Yeah. So I have a quote on here, which I'm not fully sure where it came from, which is that true worthiness comes from within. So allow yourself to shine and the world will follow. And I think this piece really speaks to, it brings up a few different things for me, which is one, like, let's start here, right? Like, let's start with our mind and the self-talk and the stuff that we have been, the ways we've been programmed to like think and be, and how, like kind of what I spoke to in the beginning, where we're kind of taught that our worth is directly related to our output, like how well we do in work or sports or succeed in school or succeed in life, right? Which, like, what is succeeding in life? Succeeding in life to me at this point is like, how much joy can I have? How much fun can I have doing the things that I love to do? And when I move from those spaces, it's everything else follows. Like, there's so much more ease and joy. Like, anything I get clunky about, which is usually money most of the time for most of us, right? It's like all of it starts to flow and come when we're actually moving from that space of creative and expansive joy in our life. And getting to that point is a constant like realization and understanding that like most of the time what's going on up here is not real and true, and it's actually like moving us in a direction of like away from who and what we truly are. Like, the energy work that I do, Access Consciousness, right? They have this phrase which is your give me a second. Your point of view creates your reality. Your reality doesn't create your point of view. And so I know that your brain's probably like, what? Especially if you're hearing that for the first time. Your point of view, the way you view everything creates what you see. What you're seeing and experiencing does not create your point of view. So that to me leads to the space of like, okay, it all starts here, right? It starts here. And by starting here, I don't mean here, I mean here. I mean here in the body. Like, where are these stories, these pains, these pathways, where are they living within inside of here? And how can I work with this to help this? Which, is so beautiful for me because of what I've chosen in my life, like the path that I've chosen to be. I studied kinesiology in college, which is human body movement studies, right? And then went to yoga school, and now I'm a licensed massage therapist and an energy worker, and I'm actually currently in the process of studying a whole new modality, and all related to like starting here at the core. And like, it's obviously so important to also do the practices like meditation and stuff, like control the mind. Step one. All of those things have helped so much. And Access Consciousness and the bars and body processes have actually been a huge conduit for me, which again, we'll probably get to we will get to Access and all of that stuff in later episodes. But I just want to like give a little touch point here, because if you would like to go explore that realm, I highly, highly encourage it. And if you are in the Central Oregon area, you can work personally with me. Yeah, so we start here, right, with the body. And so then this kind of brings back to the session that I received with my friend and with Dr. Brianne. And you know, we're speaking beforehand about like this stuff that's alive in me, touching on worthiness and deserving and all of that. It's so real and so alive, and so it just feels like it's clinging to me. Like nothing that I do, I've been doing practices the last few days, like nothing that I do seems to shake it. I wake up every morning just feeling sad, and then I cry, and I move through it, and it feels better for a little while, but then it comes back, and I'm like, why is it clinging to me, you know? And I go into this session, and just the way that she was with my body and the pieces that we were touching on, and so much work happened here on this left side of my body, which is our more feminine side, our maternal lineage, which speaks to a lot. And like the releases that were happening, and what I was speaking as we were doing the work, and just like letting what came up come through and releasing it and letting it go. And I mean, like, I was ugly crying and like all of this stuff, but it's like feeling that like actually release from my body. I was like, whoa, the shift was massive that happened here. And that is like so accessible for all of us to work with this physical vessel that we have in order to start to relieve and release and let go and loosen the grip of the pains, the stories, the pathways, the trauma that lives here. And there's so many ways to do that. Like, it is amazing to work with someone and to let someone work on you and fully receive that and be in that space of just full receiving and breathing. Like, that is amazing. And I highly encourage it. And it's one of the reasons that I do what I do, because it is so potent and so powerful. And there are things that we can do with ourselves every day: breath work, meditation, yoga, bowspring, any type of body movement, self-massage, any type of body movement is going to help to start release that, but intentional, right? I had someone who used to call me an anxious roller. So I have a lot of body care tools, right? I've got like a foam roller and lacrosse balls and blocks and all these things. And definitely for a good portion of my life, when I would experience pain and stuff in my body and I would feel things like clinging to me, I would get on these things and I would just like roll it out. And I did it too hard. Like I went too far and actually caused myself like more pain. So I just want to speak to that space of like when we're using tools and stuff like that. And even if it's yoga and other practices, it's like just making sure that we're bringing some intentionality to it, right? Because it's so easy to just be like, I'm going to roll it out. I'm going to get this knot out and that's going to solve my problem. And that space of force, of pushing that masculine space, that world that we live in, that is not the way to be. That is not the way to be. The way to be is slowness and softening. Slow and soft. That is how the shift and the release begins to happen. Our body is so amazing and does so much for us, and it also gets greatly abused in a lot of ways, whether it's sports, whether it's actual physical abuse, whether it's the food that we take in and the constant like same activities we're doing over and over again and not giving our body any relief. Like, it takes on so much. So when it comes to actually working with it, forcing and pushing more is not going to get us to where we want to go. If we really want to feel that softening, that opening, that releasing, it is through slow, intentional movement and touch. I'm really passionate about that. And I'll also speak as someone who, people do come to me for deep tissue. And when I did first start doing massage, that's very much what I was known for. And we can do that. And as I've evolved as a practitioner and as I've learned more about the fascia, about about the physical anatomy of this meat suit that we live in, the body just doesn't respond to that force, especially right off the bat. Like there's really this like, hey body, take a moment and put your hands somewhere on your body if you can. Hey body, how you doing? Where do you need some attention today? How do you want me to be with you today? And when I begin to work with myself or with others from that space, body's like, oh, I'm safe. Oh, I'm safe. I can soften, I can release, I can let go. And so that is the way that I have found that opens up the most space for us. I want to go back to this, just what I was speaking to earlier, which may be the title of the podcast, wholeness and holiness. So as Brie was working on me and this message came through, I have considered myself, especially over the years in the work that I've done, as like a whole being. And this is what I'm saying, where it's like, I thought I was there. I thought I had reached a space of like, no, I'm celebrating myself. Like I'm deserving. I'm deserving. I'm worthy of like to live, to have abundance in my life, to have everything that I ask for and desire. And also realizing that what I've been choosing recently has uncovered another layer of that unworthiness that I still feel, because what I'm trying to generate and create is being blocked because of my deep-seated trauma of not feeling worthy. So there's that. And then there's this piece of holiness. And when she said those two together, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, because again, we are infinite beings, and holy to me just sits and resonates so deeply because of how I choose to now conduct my life from this space of deep intention and deep devotion. And trust me, I'm not perfect. It is not online and on point every single day. And this is what I am constantly aware of and working towards, is moving from intention and deep divine alignment and asking for help from wherever that comes. For me, it's angels and guides and the goddesses, and so much. It comes from everywhere. And so for me, those two together just felt so beautiful. And I haven't really heard those two things together before. So it just feels so lovely to be able to share that with the collective. And if it resonates, I would love to hear about it, because I love how different pieces of things that people share like hit different points for people. And just getting to understand like how these pieces are really alive in others' lives would bring me so much joy. So please feel free to share. I don't know how we do that. Social media, maybe? Email?
Um, yeah. Okay. So let's come back to that space of like, where do these beliefs and self doubts come from, right? So we already kind of talked on the negative self talk, which the monkey mind. Oh my God, it's cray. um, yeah, it's that the chitter chattering that just happens up here. Like, let's just be with that because that's real. That is something that we all experience. And I'm going to be super honest. Like, again, like I went to yoga school. I lived at an ashram for a month. Like I did the meditation. Like I've done these things and all that stuff totally helped. Honestly, kirtan, like singing kirtan, singing mantra was the one thing for a very long time, was like the only thing that would really get me out of that crazy running mind state of being. So I've done all these things, all these practices, and all that was helping. It really was. And for me, when access consciousness came into my life, I was just hanging out at City Park in Mount Shasta in the grass with my dog, with Henry, and this guy who is now my friend, Andrew, had a table set up, and I was like, I was massaged, sure, in the sun, great, in the park, awesome, and underneath Mount Shasta, amazing. So I went over and he was like, okay, well, can I run your bars? And I was like, I don't. I was like on the table at this point, and I was like, I don't even know what that means, but sure. And ever since that point in time, this is one of the reasons that I chose the direction of this work, because number one, it came to me, but also like I experienced a shift in my mental state almost immediately. It didn't come into my awareness until probably a few hours after that session. But something happened with Henry up on the mountain, where I was camping up on the mountain, and I was just like, wow, like I brought this like pause into a situation that I would normally be very reactive to, and I did go to reaction like automatically. And then this pause came in, and it wasn't conscious at all. It was just like, well, I guess it was conscious, but like it's not like I was like, oh, this is happening, so now I'm going to do this. It was just like my body paused, and I was able to take a breath and then remember that like when something happens, you know, like if we give an emotion, what is it, like 90 seconds or something like that, if we be with it, it will shift and move through. And that time period could be wrong. I don't actually know if it's 90 seconds or not, but you know, when we're with it, it moves through. And so I did that. I stopped, I paused, I breathed, and instead of my crazy, like worrying, anxious brain coming in, I was able to get to my like centered state. And I was like, oh, I was like, I wonder why that happened. And then I made a connection, and I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, Henry's totally fine. Like, we're cool. Like, I was literally about to drive home. I was on like a road trip, and I was literally about to drive home because I wasn't super far. You know, I was like 3 or 4 hours away. And because I was so worried about him. And that experience, I was like, the one thing in my life that changed was that session that I just had. And whatever that was, I'm looking into that. We're going to do that. And like, fast forward, honestly, a few weeks, I ended up grabbing some friends, going down to Mount Shasta, and Andrew gave us all a Access Bars class. And that was when I first became an Access Bars practitioner. My life has been profound since that moment. And I'm just like so grateful to that realm of work. And it continues to be a contribution to me. So yeah, negative self-talk is like one. That little tangent. Negative self-talk is one space where those beliefs come from. The other one is like trauma and adverse experiences, right? Like deep emotional scars that manifest as the feelings of feeling unworthy. And that is something personally I'm still unpacking. There's a lot there that I'm still sitting with as to where that came from in my past. And the other one is comparison. So, dude, get this. Comparison, which I'm pro at. I'm doing really good at my work with it right now. But comparison is the thief of joy, y'all. Is the thief of joy. Like, anytime you have those thoughts of comparing yourself to another person or situation, or like, number one, grass is always greener most of the time. And also like the second that we do that, we are like robbing ourselves of joy in that area of our life and in other areas of our life. And as someone who would label herself as a pro at comparison, which is not something to brag about, but we're here because it's something that's just been very challenging for me over the years. I feel like only recently have I really gotten to a space of noticing those thoughts when they come up. Like that's the first piece, right? With like any of this stuff is like noticing the pain when it comes up, noticing the thought that I just had. Like we're as beings, we're like so fucking amazing that we can like think about what we're thinking about and then think about that. Like we are not just made, what does the Bible say? Like made in the image and likeness of God. Like we are the essence of God as well. And so like the fact that we get to do that is so cool. So like having like being aware that I was comparing myself to someone else or another situation and then being like, whoa. Okay. But that I know that I just had that thought. That thought just happened. So now what? So now don't compare yourself, Monika. Don't you do that. Right? But it's like not that simple. It's so not that simple. And so just, again, like all of this is a process and I'm still totally not perfect at it. And when it comes to comparison, I want to bring in it's kind of like the adverse. I don't actually know if that's the right word. The opposite of comparison is celebration for me. So when we are comparing ourselves to other people, and this comes real and true within some of the businesses that I have, like one of them, I'm swirling in a space with like so many amazing, empowered, wonderful women. And I love them so much. And I love what they are doing in their lives. And we have these chats and we call them winning Wednesdays, like days every single Wednesday where like you can post and share in there like something you're celebrating about yourself or about someone else, like within our sphere, without our sphere, just like something that you're celebrating, right? And there was a period of time when this first started out for me, which was like last year. And I'm so grateful for this space because without it, I don't think I would actually be where I'm at with the whole comparison thing. And so people would post things and I would notice that I was having a hard time celebrating someone else's wins. There's no way I could not celebrate my own wins. Forget about that. But also celebrating someone else's wins because I was comparing myself and what I was doing and being like, well, I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not like whatever it is. And so comparing myself to them automatically robbed me of joy that I could then share with them and celebrate their experience. And then from that, have it returned to me and have that joy and that expression and that exuberance come through my being and extend out into my life. So then my reality starts to align with my point of view, right? So wild how that happens. So comparison, celebration. Let's work on that shift, huh? And I'll go into two more really quick. So imposter syndrome is, my interpretation is like the belief that our successes are due to like luck or something outside happening, not just because of like who we are. And so like when we think about it that way, right, that like what we talked about earlier, like my worth is determined by everything external or whatever, or like how much I'm doing. Like no, my brain's like breaking at this point. I'm like, no, like we are so like imposter syndrome comes from that space of it's like a loop, like not feeling worthy. Like even when it came to me creating this space and creating this podcast, like so much of it up and even to when I started recording, I was just like imposter syndrome, like this just coming in hard. Like, who am I to do this? But it's also like, who am I to not do this? Who are you to not like follow your dreams and do the thing that brings you so much joy and life and you know that just wants to be created and breathed and moved through you. Like, who are you to not do that? And regardless of what the world tells you, regardless of what the people closest to you tell you, if the people closest to you are telling you that you can't do it and they're not in your corner and they're not on your side, honey, they are not your people. They're not your people. Like, let go, loosen your grip, let them go, let go of the relationships, let go of like the jobs and stuff, because like those are not the spaces that are going to support your highest vibrational enlightenment and your purpose on this planet. And when we actually tune in to like who we are, like we know. And those little things that have been like working on the outskirts that constantly come back in, it's like, those are the things, those are the places, those are the spaces that you are meant to be in. And I also had someone share with me that like when imposter syndrome comes in, it's actually really amazing if we get to reframe it and be like, that is actually coming up because that is the space that I am meant to be in. And I'm afraid. For me, I was like, I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of people seeing me. I'm afraid of so many different things. And it's like, okay, that can be there. And step forward, step in, do it scared. Do it even under, leads me into the last one, fear of failure. Brene Brown is an amazing woman and had something really amazing to say about fear that hits really deep with me. It's the one thing that like I always come back to and remember is that fear of failure is about like, we cannot like, okay, innately stepping into the arena of life and whatever you do, like me doing this podcast or you launching your business or taking that job that you really want, like whatever it is, doing the relationship, like moving across the country, like whatever it is, like leaping in and stepping into your life and doing something even with the risk of failure. It's like, we are going to fail. Like she says this outright. It's like, yo, we're not going to sugarcoat this. Like anything you do, you could 100% fail at it. And you know what? That's okay. Because if we play it safe, if we constantly play it safe and numb ourselves and dim our light and all of that, we're never going to get to experience what could be on the opposite side of that failure. Yes, we might fail, but what if we don't? What if we don't? What if we are so worthy of success and abundance, which is just abounds around? Like abundance is having, a home, a safe home to be in, food in your fridge, like wonderful animals surrounding you, like comfortable clothes, being able to go and get a Christmas tree and live where I live. Like abundance exists all around. And so by stepping into the arena of your life, there is always a risk of failure. We're not going to lie about that. And we will learn from every single failure. We learn from every failure. And when we actually own that place of deserving and worthiness within us, I feel like we cannot fail. Or even if something happens externally that may look like failure, the point of view, the mindset, the way that we approach it is like, okay, you know what? I did that. I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and I'm going to move on. I'm going to move forward into the next thing, into the next phase of my life. I'm not just going to lay on the couch and eat ice cream and watch Netflix and just be like, oh, woe is me, victimhood mindset. Like, my life is shit, like, might as well just not do anything because that one business failed or like that relationship failed or whatever. Like, you deserve to live a big, beautiful, expansive, abundant life. And it exists in the here and now. It exists in the present. All we have to do is step forward and claim it. Beautiful. Life is beautiful. Well, honestly, that feels really complete. So, and in this moment, I'm actually like, my body's like jittered. Actually, just like my left arm, as we were talking about how all of this stuff is like hanging out of my left side, that space, that feminine space, that side of receiving, it's actually like shaking a little bit right now, but good. Like there's energy flowing through me. Like I feel like right now I'm living my purpose. This is something, creating this podcast, creating this space is something that has wanted to be birthed through me for so long, for so long. And we're finally here. And I'm so grateful. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here with me, for being you, for being the wholeness and the holiness that you truly be. May we embody and continue to know that our worth is inherent. It is embedded from our births onto this planet. We are worthy and whole just as we are right here in this moment. No matter your life circumstances, no matter what the world tells you, you're whole. You are worthy. And you are deeply deserving of the infinite love of this universe. One more deep breath in. Exhale out. My friend, Dr. Brianne Grogan, is an incredible pelvic floor physical therapist, and she works a lot with women. She's got a bunch of stuff online, an incredible website and YouTube. And if it's something that you feel like might call to you, I highly, highly suggest going to check out her stuff. And we'll probably put her information in the stuff about the podcast. Thank you so much. Beautiful beings and creatures, and the creatures that exist around here. I don't know if Ginger's in the frame. For tuning into this podcast. Wouldn't be possible without you guys. And just the gratitude that I have for myself. I'm gonna celebrate myself right now. I'm doing it. I'm here. We're showing up. I'm recording. It was a little scary, and this is actually the first ever full podcast, the first full recording that I'm doing. So, like, so much ecstatic joy for that. Like, good job, Monika. We're fucking doing it. We're going. So great. I love it. Take some time for yourself and find something to celebrate for you today. Deep blessings and gratitude.